Welcome to BALLBUSTERS Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, that's Quantum Eraser, then you need to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with all the BALLBUSTERS, flat earth debate, science versus scientism, science versus pseudoscience, you name it, it is all going to be here on the Quantum Eraser channel. So subscribe today. This is obviously the very first live broadcast on this channel, so a massive warm welcome to all of you who do join us live for this first broadcast. Now, joining me this evening is, first and foremost, Quantum Eraser himself. So say a very big hello, Quantum Eraser.
Hello, sir, and thanks everyone for showing up. It's going to be a bang.
Let's hope so. We're also joined by Sleeping Warrior. How you doing?
Oh, can you hear me?
Of course. We did a sound check and a pre-show.
I didn't realise I was expected to speak. I'm sorry. I'm good.
Yeah,
all is good.
We're going to say hello to you at the very least. Has this show got a reputation or what?
It's a very wet weekend up here in Liverpool, Manchester way, so it's going dark as well. It's weird. It feels like it's a proper autumnal day.
We are also joined by Paula, otherwise known as YouTuber Bible Literalist. Very good to have you, Paula.
Hello, thank you. Good to be here on this historic occasion.
And also Betty. Good to have you too. How are you doing, Betty?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Hello, everybody, and I'm very excited for the first show on Quantum Eraser's channel. So, ready to go.
Excellent. And last but by no means least, we've got Chocolate saying, how you doing, Chocolate?
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
How's everybody doing? Good to be here. Shout out to QE.
Shout out retracted.
Shout out not retracted.
So, if you haven't figured it out already from the title, we're going to be covering the Big Bang, as is usually the case. Quantum Eraser's drawn up what he called an attack on the low-hanging fruit, and we had a good laugh about some of the most glaring contradictions. If it's good by you, QE, I know Anthony's going to be aching to get this in at some stage, so might as well just get it dealt with straight away. If that's all good by you, if I can get my words out.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Big Bang Theory, right? For me, this is the biggest load of pseudoscience nonsense ever. Evidence for it is long since gone and all that. But for me, I've always wanted to ask this question because I've never had the opportunity, because Big Bang's never come up in Flat Earth. But I want to know the answer to this question. If anybody can answer it, feel free. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. If the beginning of our existence came from the creation of a boatload of energy, how can we start from the beginning with a massive contradiction in thermodynamics? Either there was an exception to the rule, or we didn't get here this way. Does anybody know what the answer is?
Pseudoscience.
Special pleading. Special pleading because they have to have an exception to start with, and then ever since then it's been the other way. So there you go.
This is like arguing that gravity is a force when you know it's not a force. Energy can't be created, so how can we exist if we resulted from the explosion of energy? That it's just, this is a massive contradiction, John. Am I the only one seeing this, or is this true?
No, it's a massive contradiction. And
right, the show's over. Let's go home and resume normal life.
Yeah, you've got it.
We're gonna have a little bit more fun than that. It not only violates the first law, it violates quantum mechanical laws. So the big one is the first law. We can just stick with that, but you'll be hearing that throughout the presentation, I'm sure, a couple times.
I've got my rum. I'm sat here ready to go. Let's hit this show on the road.
We need some more pomp and circumstance.
Oh, what, you want more frivolity before I stick your presentation up? I've got you on screen already. Might as well kick off.
Yeah. We can begin. Are we good to go?
We are indeed. The first presentation on the Quantum Eraser channel. Absolutely glorious. Go for your life.
Thank you, sir. All right, here we have a depiction of the Big Bang. You'll see this in numerous places. I think I first seen it with Brian Greene, right? Now let's take a look at this. We have a cone shape here of what happened. Let's go back to the beginning. This bright light back here, a quantum fluctuation. How'd you get that without a knower of the path information? But you'll just whistle past the graveyard. That's that one, right? Yeah. And inflation. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that with the father of inflation. And we'll get his take on what he thinks of inflation. But the biggest thing that I saw when I first looked at this was, you see all this black stuff out here, around the cone? They put a few token lights out here, but I don't know why they did that. The question is, what is this expanding into? That was my question. I don't think anyone's answered that question. And I like this little ruler bar down here, 13.7 billion years from this point over here to the end. Well, what about before this point? What's this back here? Is this 1.21 gigawatts? Right? Yeah, I have some questions on this. But I thought I'd bring it up to start us off. So what is the Big Bang Theory? Well, in 1927, the father of modern cosmology, get ready for this, globetards, Georges Henry Joseph Eduardo Lemaitre, the Jesuit and Catholic priest, say hello, conjured what we know as the Big Bang, which he termed then the hypothesis of the primeval atom. Distinguished astrophysicist Fred Hoyle of Cambridge and of the tornado through a junkyard fame, Fred Hoyle, during a 1949 BBC radio broadcast, coined the phrase Big Bang, clearly pejorative and derisive, as Fred was a proponent of steady state theory. You see, atheists didn't much care for the hypothesis of the primeval atom back then because it hinted at a creator and was highly contentious over the next 20 years. So let's get a look at this gentleman. Where did he go? Doesn't look like he's around. That's not him. Looks like I'm going to have to catch that in between a break and try to see if I can come up with that picture of him. We'll continue. So, what is the Big Bang Theory? The basics of the Big Bang Theory from the universe today are fairly simple. In short, the Big Bang hypothesis states that all of the current and past matter in the universe came into existence at the same time, roughly 13.8 billion years ago. At this time, all matter was compacted into a very small ball with infinite density and intense heat called a singularity, right? We got a couple questions with this universe today. Number one, came into existence. Pray tell, what, where, and how? Then please explain how this doesn't violate, Anthony, the first law of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics, please. Number two, whoa there, Cochise. Infinite density? More like infinite imagination. From Yakad Heap Pendian. A singularity means a point where some property is infinite. For example, at the center of a black hole, according to classical theory, the density is infinite because a finite mass is compressed to a zero volume. Really? From Fizzlink.com, the Big Bang singularity is a point of zero volume, but very high mass, which makes the density infinite. Do you see some problems with those citations above? Volume can't be zero in this equation. Just can't be. Can't have it. Why? Because every primary school student knows you can't divide by friggin' zero, right? It's undefined. So now we not only can divide by 0 all of a sudden, but when we do, the answer's infinity. Yeah, that's what it equals. Yeah, they just defined it that way. Well, it's undefined. We'll divide by it. That's infinity. My word. Number 3, scientifically validate 13.8 billion years. Right? Let's go through the questions real quick. Natural phenomena observed, please. Post a formal scientific hypothesis. Identify the independent, dependent, and control variables in the experiment. And cite source, please. And then post a null hypothesis that was rejected or falsified. You will not get any answers to this question. Why? There's no natural phenomena observed. You're stopped dead in your tracks right at step 1, right? Unless you're 1.21 gigawatts, right? You're not going to be able to answer this question. It'd be easier resurrecting Alexander the Great's horse than answering A, B, C, or D. And number 4, you can't have 0 volume and also have heat, that is kinetic energy, vibrating molecules. Clowns. Let's stop right there. Quick stop. Any comments, questions there?
Feel free, Ballbusters.
Yeah, what can you say about this, huh? I mean, I don't understand the cone shape either. I mean, shouldn't it be going all over the place? If there is a place, time and space doesn't exist. So, in when there's nothing. So
yeah, it has a direction, a shape. It should be random, all in all directions, exploding.
Yeah, why do you get a cone shape? I mean, is that only what we can see from our perspective? Is that what they're trying to tell us, or what?
And what banged out of nothing ever existing and suddenly something went bang? How does that happen?
And everything that says boom or bang usually destroys things instead of making things, huh? Also a contradiction. How many do we have already? Contradictions.
Who's keeping track of that? Who's keeping track of the contradictions? That was a pretty good idea in the pre-show.
Yeah, I don't have the app for a countdown.
I don't have the app.
Count up. Sorry.
Man,
contradiction app.
21st century problems.
Well, if they can double speak, I can double speak. So.
Anthony?
Chocolate, Anthony?
Yeah, I think he's writing down the contradictions.
Anything to add, Chocolate? If not, we'll move on.
Yeah, I'll just say the very notion of nothing becoming everything is just so ridiculous. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Okay, you back up on screen?
All right, from space.com. Let's take a listen to another definition of the Big Bang Theory. It is the leading explanation about how the universe began. At its simplest, it talks about the universe as we know it, starting with a small singularity, then inflating over the next 13.8 billion years to the cosmos that we know today. So at least they're staying consistent with the other definitions above. That's the only positive. Number 1, leading explanation. From the University of Rochester Physics Lab, common mistakes in applying the scientific method. The most fundamental error is to mistake the hypothesis for an explanation of a phenomena without performing experimental tests. Sometimes common sense and logic tempt us into believing that no test is needed. There are numerous examples of this dating from the Greek philosophers to the present day. So, all they have is a leading explanation. I'm sure we can get a lot of people with leading explanations. We don't need leading explanations. We need the hypothesis first and then test with experiment. You see this? They don't even have a hypothesis. You need a hypothesis, right? Not just an explanation. I don't know where you guys are getting there. Well, I can explain. We don't need your explanations. You can explain it, and then provide the hypothesis. Just go through the scientific method for us and validate your explanation. Because if you don't validate your explanation, it's a just so story, and we're going to laugh at you. Okay? Number 2, starting with a small singularity. Where'd you get the singularity from? And inflation, like I said before, Paul Steinhardt, father of inflation theory. Interview in Scientific American since 1983, it has become clear that inflation is very flexible. Parameters can be adjusted to give any result, and generically leads to a multiverse consisting of patches in which any outcome is possible. Imagine a scientific theory that was designed to explain and predict, but ends up allowing literally any conceivable possibility without any rule about what is more likely. What good is it? It rules out nothing and can never be put to a real test. Now, he compromises. Now, this train wrecks the whole inflation theory right on its face. However, Paul, you compromised yourself in this little statement, because how did you get a real scientific theory to begin with without experimental tests? See the problem? That's rhetorical. From the BigBangTheory.com, they already have their own website. According to the standard theory, our universe sprang into existence as a singularity around 13.7 billion years ago. Sprang? Is that all you got? Again, from BigBangTheory.com, they give us a little more. The singularity didn't appear in space. Rather, space began inside of the singularity. Prior to the singularity, nothing existed. Not space, time, matter, or energy. Nothing. So where and in what did the singularity appear if not in space? We don't know. Well, that breeds a lot of confidence, along with about 5 contradictions in your little statement right here. So number 1, so nothing existed, then the singularity appeared? Again, please explain in a first law of thermodynamics and then quantum mechanics context, por favor. And 2, appeal to ignorance. We don't know. That was simple. You see, the Big Bang is not an actual scientific theory, folks. You see, they, that is, pseudoscientists, merely repeat these conjurings a few 100,000 times over multiple decades into the waiting ears of their incoherent hordes. For example, you baltards out there, then sit back and laugh. Why? Well, they know that their target audience wouldn't know the difference between actual science and a chartreuse windsock. They also know you will not only believe it, you'll mindlessly parrot it for them. Like I said, it's not a scientific theory. This is easy. Define the Big Bang, post the Big Bang scientific theory, post just 2 formal scientific hypotheses, then experiments that concretize into a real scientific theory. Highlight the independent variables used in each test. Post the null hypothesis that was rejected or falsified for each. Post the natural phenomena observed, the first step of the scientific method, that availed the scientific investigation to begin with. Right? You can't answer any of these questions. We already know that. But still call it science anyway. Maybe you could fool a couple second graders or preschoolers. Even more moronic, if that were possible, they have the brain-dead atheists parroting what they gnashed their teeth and rail against, right? Religion. But remember, the conjurer of the Big Bang Theory was George's Henry Joseph Eduardo Lemaitre. He's a Jesuit and Catholic priest. It's tantamount to Jedi mind-tricking PETA nudist into advertising and backing fur traders, for crying out loud. You hypocrite, pretender clown, spinning space monkey muppets. Also, we have Georges Lemaitre, our Jesuit and Catholic priest, who was the first, listen up, to derive Hubble's law. Well, why is it Hubble's law? If he was the first to derive it, wouldn't it be Lemaitre's law? So, who was the first to derive Hubble's law, see redshift, published 2 years before Edwin Hubble did. It's officially known as the Hubble-Lemaitre law. What the heck? Why? Should have been Lemaitre's law. And see my personal demolition of the CMB and redshift fiascos on my channel shortly. We're going to be going over those. So, like I said, let's take a look. Let's get you oriented to who we're talking about here. So, in the middle here is Abby Georges Lemaitre, besides Weird Al, and we have Joe Pesci's grandfather, Utes. Nah, I'm just kidding. I think this is Robert Millikan, but this is the gentleman that we're talking about here, right? This is Abby Georges Lemaitre. Take a good look at him, globetards, because this is your father. He's the father of modern cosmology. Okay? Questions, comments?
That's all new information, actually, to me. I did not know that. Is that new information to anyone else on the panel?
Nope.
To be honest, a lot of this is new to me because I always looked at it from the first perspective and thought, hang on, Big Bang Theory, where's the evidence for it? Oh, there is none? Right, I can dismiss that based on evidence alone.
Oh, wait a second. You're the begging the question fallacy trail king. Why don't you go down here with me?
I try, but it's really hard to beg the question with the Big Bang Theory when there's zero evidence to start with. At least for things like gravity, they've at least got apples that fall from trees, and obviously an accelerating mass is a force. At least you've got that to start with. But what Big Bang Theory in space? Where do you start with the empirical evidence that's verifiable and credible for that? You can't. There is none. So for me, it's like it's completely illogical and irrational to even consider it in the first place.
Any more?
Yeah. Can you scroll back to the quote from where you see the Greek Greek priests, basically, I think. I mean, if everything sprang from there, isn't it then that it's just all coming back to a couple of people said something in the past, and this is now the result of it?
Which one are you talking about?
Yeah, there was some quote where you had said that it's nothing about experiments and stuff, and then it says something about, it's a while back, I think. A little bit back.
Is it a little further than the inflation theory?
Yeah, I think so. There you go. I mean, there are numerous examples of this, dating from the Greek philosophers to the present days. I mean, it began with a couple of people that had some ideas, philosophers, right? So they didn't do any experiments. They were just thinking about stuff. And it seems like they all derive all these ideas and come back to these Greek philosophers and say, look at these wise people.
Right. In the context of no experiments. Yeah, you're correct. That's what they were doing. Exactly. Yeah. They would just make a claim or like you say, just declare.
Yeah. Or that they were just philosophizing and we are, after the fact, making it up to be that they were correct or something. I mean, it seems like they have these guys in the past, which we cannot verify what they really believe. They wrote up stuff, but how can we know that that's true? Huh? I mean, people are also about the Bible are saying stuff. Well, how could that be? These were fallible people, weren't they? But we're going after these Greek philosophers as if they are telling the truth.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter anyway because they don't have, not only the Greeks. I mean, if they're going to parrot what they got back in history, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But show me the experiment with your explanation validating this claim. That's how you deal with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. And what is a singularity exactly? Can anybody show me a singularity?
Can any of the 100 people watching on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel show you a singularity?
Maybe that's the singularity. The idea that this is a new show on the Quantum Eraser channel.
That's my ham-handed way of shouting out the fact that you've got 100 people watching, which is just awesome. Anyway,
yeah, that's outstanding. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm just overwhelmed. These past 10 days, it's been a whirlwind for me. I never planned on having a channel, so things are moving at a rapid rate, let me tell you. But I appreciate you guys.
Shout out to Nathan for bullying.
What? Any comments, Paula?
Nothing really new to add. It's just such an obvious just so story from the very start. What else is there to say? I mean, they admit there was nothing at one time, and then they say something, a singularity to call it something, just appeared magically, and then it exploded magically without a cause into something bigger than itself, which is impossible, and then it ordered itself. It's just one self-contradiction after another is built on pulling a rabbit out of a hat. There's just not much to say about it.
Yeah.
I do have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Sleeping Warrior.
John, according to the Big Bang Theory, is it possible that there could be matter before the Big Bang Theory that was in the place where the Big Bang exploded? Could there have been matter in that area where the Big Bang exploded? In other words, is there anything older than the Big Bang itself?
No, that's a second law of thermodynamics violation.
So in that case, I've got something to present, and I'm not sure if now's the right time or not.
How long is it?
30 seconds.
Oh, that's fine.
By present, you just mean say.
Start the clock.
Say again, Nathan.
Just means say, right?
Yeah, present my screen if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so if nothing can exist in the area where the Big Bang took place, right? Daily Mirror, national newspaper in England, is reporting that there is a star that's older than the universe, pointing to a major flaw in the Big Bang theory. just one major flaw, right? So apparently it says, a star that's older than the universe is baffling scientists, suggesting that there might be something fundamentally wrong, just one thing that's wrong with the Big Bang theory. Detailed measurements of the expansion rate of the universe based on Einstein's theory of general relativity placed the Big Bang at around 13.8 billion years ago. However, recent analysis of a star known as Methuselah star using the orbiting Hubble Space Telescope suggests that it is 14.5 billion years old, some 700 million years older than the universe. The Methuselah star, codenamed blah blah blah, was first catalogued in 1912 and lies only 190 light years from Earth. Analysis of the star has revealed that it contains very little iron, suggesting that it formed before the element became common in the universe. What do we know about how spectroscopy and light and interpretation of spectroscopy shapes our interpretations of the atmosphere? Well, Nathan's got the best explanation for that one, because I'm going to get background noise now. Nathan, do you want to tell us about how the telescope thing with the what is it, spectroscopy? What's that one?
Well,
what the example?
I'll leave that till the end. So just so you don't get if you can get your screen unpresented and Quantum Erasers presented again, just so that's done. The transsexual spectroscopy example can wait till after, if that's good by you.
Yeah, but my point was that apparently they've now found a star that was older than the Big Bang itself. So I find that to be ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. But I see there's a little confusion here because number one, with your question, you said before the universe. That's not what they're saying here. What they're saying is that they're trying to push the timetable out because you can't have a star older than the universe because the star is in the universe, right? So that's a contradiction right there. What they're trying to do is they're trying to push the timeline back now, right?
Well, the heading does say star that is, quote, older than the universe points to a major flaw. I mean, I'm not saying that it is or it's not. I'm just telling you what the news is telling us.
It can't be older than the universe. The child can't be older than the parent.
I know. That's what I'm pointing out.
That's the first thing I thought when you said it. I was like, wait a minute, how could it be older than the universe
I agree.
if it's in the
I'm
universe?
just pointing
What?
out the
How does
silliness.
that make sense?
I'm just pointing out the
Oh
silliness
my
in what we're being
god.
told in the
Right,
news.
let's just bring
Is
this back
someone
on track.
writing this down as a contradiction?
Yeah, it is. It's another one for the contradiction counter. But I just want to point out that if you're just making this stuff up, right, the contradictions don't really matter. You know, because it's not real to begin with.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually affect our life very much. I know people
Yeah, but
believe this is their
does-
reality, and that's complete nonsense. But I'm just saying, when you're making it up in the first instance, there's going to be problems.
Yeah, but I think what it does is, like, if you're not evidence-based, right, you're going to believe that there's possibly a star that's older than the universe. But if you're an empiricist like me, you're going to look at this and think that the science world is trolling the dopey people, like, you know, people like, I don't know, Daniel in chat that thinks that stuff that appears in newspapers is true. They're actually trolling people like Daniel. That's what they're really doing. I just look at it and laugh and think that they're trolling people. But Daniel thinks that it's true because it's in the news.
Well, I'm going to take most of this to the woodshed, not here today, but in pieces. So, coming up on the channel will be detailed videos on the speed of light, redshift, CMB fiascos. I'm just going to take these things to the woodshed and bludgeon them senseless, right? The new one will be spectroscopy, because what I'm finding here is the Baltards, all they say is spectroscopy. Most can't even say it. It's usually spectroscopy or spectroscopy or things like that. And they just say the word and they think that everything's good. They have no idea what they're parroting, right? There's huge differences between terrestrial spectroscopy and celestial spectroscopy. Of course, you guys don't even know what spectroscopy is, the tenets of it, what they're even doing. So I love people when they say spectroscopy. That PhD physicist, what the heck is his name? He was on your channel. He said that physicists aren't interested in the natural world. Darn, his name has just left me. He brought up that spectroscopy too. And I challenged, as soon as he said it, I challenged him immediately, right? He couldn't go into any depth whatsoever. You know why? Because he was just parroting from Wiki. Oh, Phil Nye, the physics guy. Physics isn't interested in the natural world. Physics guy. That guy, yeah. So all these guys just say spectroscopy and they think everything's good. It band-aids the wound. Everything's fine. I'll tell you what. I yearn for people to say that to me. I yearn for it. So please, say spectroscopy.
Nah, can't pronounce it, so.
Yeah, we ain't gonna get into it today because we got too much information to go through still.
Need you to share your screen again, if you will.
Thanks, Anthony.
Once it's
Tell me when it's up.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, we're good to go. This
Yep.
is the big one that they use, right? The cosmic microwave background radiation. Another band-aid. They think, the Big Bang's true. CMB. Yeah? Just wait a few weeks. We're going to deal with the CMB on its own. We'll take a couple pot shots now. So, like I said, these Dunning-Kruger mindless hypocrites see the PETA nudist fur traders above. They just parrot this stuff. All right, now what I want you to pay attention to is this year right here. Everyone got it? 1948, right? The year 1948. 11 papers were submitted mainly by 3 players, George Gamow and his students, Ralph Alpher and Robert Herman. Now the hot Big Bang was bubbling. The predictions, yeah, right, though were of what was already known to exist. This is easy to find out. The theorists in 1948 were merely conforming the model to data already collected from 1937 to 1941. The 3 musketeers up here made additional predictions of the CMB temperature that ranged from 3 degrees to 50 degrees Kelvin. Wow, that's a big difference, folks. They're just making this up anyway. And they already knew, as we're going to see here in a few seconds. So, from NASA, the existence of the CMB radiation was first predicted like I said, from Ralph Alpher in 1948 in connection with his research on Big Bang nucleosynthesis undertaken together with Robert Herman and George Gamow. Just talked about that above. Like I said before, predicted, okay, let's see the hypothesis, right? You can't have a prediction without a hypothesis, people. That's what a prediction is, a scientific prediction. So we have Robert Wilson. This is Wilson, Penzias and Wilson that got the Nobel Prize, right, for discovering the CMB. Oh, really? Well, let's take a listen to what Robert Wilson had to say in his Nobel lecture. The first confirmation of the microwave cosmic background that we knew of, however, came from a totally different indirect measurement. This measurement had in fact been made 30 years earlier by Adams and Dunning. Adams and Dunning had discovered several faint optical interstellar absorption lines, which were later identified with the molecules CH, CH+, and CN. In the case of CN, in addition to the ground state, absorption was seen from the first rotationally excited state. McKellar, using Adams' data on the population of these two states, calculated that the excitation temperature of CN was 2.3 Kelvin. Right? He's talking about these. In 1937, remember our date? We had to remember 1948, right? In 1937, Adams and Dunham found absorption lines which were later identified with interstellar molecules of CH and CH plus and CN. This is from the publication of the American Astronomical Society, like Robert Wilson was just talking about. He's talking about these studies, or this study and this study, from the preceding Astronomical Society. In 1940, Canadian astrophysicist and spectroscopist Andrew McCullough calculated the CN molecules were in thermal equilibrium with a temperature of about 2.3 Kelvin. So they already knew it, 1937, 1940. So we already had made measurements showing up. We already had measurements showing up in the literature 8 years before 1948, people, making this mystic prediction a post-diction. It's a classic Texas sharpshooter fallacy. Everyone know what that is, the Texas sharpshooter. Briefly, what you do is you get a big-ass barn door and you start shooting at it, right? Then you walk over, you find the tightest shot group, and then you put your target around it. That's what the Texas sharpshooter fallacy is. This is a joke, people. You think I'm just making this up? Hold on for a couple minutes. Robert Wilson again, from his Nobel lecture. At that time, some radio astronomers thought that the microwave absorption of the Earth's atmosphere was about twice the value we were using. In other words, the sky temperatures, figure 6 and 8, was about 5 Kelvin instead of 2.5 Kelvin. We knew from our measurement of sky temperature, as shown in figure 7, that this could not be the case. Really? How'd they know that? Again, see my personal demolition of the CMB and redshift fiascos quite shortly. They'll be coming out. All right? And this is all, this CMB, this is a joke. Redshift is a joke, is what I'm trying to say. But we're getting off topic just a little bit. At 5K, that's a full universe worth of error in the prediction. Yeah, their Mystic Meg prediction. This is tantamount to predicting the Seahawks will score between 0 and 1,000 points in their next game and claiming confirmation of the prediction when they score 28. Wow. You must be a scientist. Let's just say what needs to be said. Mitchell, William, Big Bang Theory Under Fire from Physics Essays, Volume 10, Number 2. This is a peer-reviewed journal. Listen up. History also shows that some Big Bang cosmologists' predictions of the MBR, that's a microwave background radiation temperature, have been adjusted after the fact, Texas sharpshooter-like, to agree with the observed temperatures. Ka-friggin' boom. Questions, comments?
No, like I say,
I got one.
Well, I just want to reiterate what I said before, which is, like I say, when you're making it up, there's going to be problems. So fudging the facts to match reality, that's going to be a consistent theme, right?
So let me give a flat Earth reference for this. Slice Barkane recently did a test or a measurement which he claimed would demonstrate the curvature of the Earth using pipes with water in it, and he said it would conform to the shape of the Earth. And when he failed to get the confirmation he was hoping for, he started looking for the reasons for why. Can you imagine if he, quote, adjusted his results to match the shape of the Earth, and it was then become apparent that he'd adjusted them results? That wouldn't go down very well in the flat Earth community, would it? But it seems to be okay in the scientific community. It seems to be a little bit false to me.
It's a complete outrage. Betty, maybe?
Nah, nothing to add to this. It's contradiction and contradictions.
Another one for the counter. Chocolate?
Yeah, again, like, how do we know what the temperature was, and they're just adjusting it after the fact? Like, it's just, it's ridiculous to think how many people believe this to be their actual reality. And it's crazy because I went so long without realizing how unscientific the Big Bang really was. And yeah, it's a joke.
Yeah, it's an outrage. I've left you till last, Paula, because I'm pretty sure you're going to have a few things to say on this. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it goes back to what Betty said about the Greek philosophers. That's where it came from, philosophy, not observation. And so they have to do the Texas sharpshooter thing to make it all work. And that's just as you predicted, saying that it's a fantasy from the start. So that's what you're going to get. You're going to see all these problems with it because the story has to keep changing. It's like George Lucas, in his prequels and sequels, changing the storyline fundamentally and just, ruining the whole story. But in pseudoscience, it doesn't ruin the story. People just have the memory of a goldfish, and so they don't remember what was predicted in the 20 or 30 years ago, let alone the 20s or 30s. And so it's easy to do because it's a never-ending story that just keeps evolving. That's the only thing that really evolves is the story. And they don't teach people in school the history of these scientific theories. I've mentioned a physics class I took called 7 Ideas That Shook the Universe, and there was a BBC series called The Day the Universe Changed that brings that point out, that the whole idea, the whole paradigm of what we're living in has changed significantly at least 7 times in history. And nobody bats an eye. They're just like, well, we used to believe this, now we believe that, but it's always believed. It's never proved. And it's all relying on math and derivation and speculation purely. So it's philosophy at the very heart of it, start and end.
Right, and it's also a nice highlighting of the hijacking of science. There's no empiricism here, there's no establishment of cause and effect here, but we're still going to hear the word science being used by you when you're describing what they described to us from birth, in terms of their models and their reifications and their Texas sharpshooter changing the details after the fact. The whole thing's an outrage, but people still firmly hold on to it as their reality. Shocks me now when I verbalise it, but that is the situation we're in with 99% of the Western world. We talk amongst ourselves like it's so normal to poo-poo this stuff and outright dismiss it for the nonsense that it is, and lest we forget that so many people are brainwashed with it. It's a really weird position that we find ourselves in this current time. I hope you all agree.
Yeah, certainly agree.
Yeah.
You move on?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let me know what's up.
Ready to go whenever you are. You're up.
We good? All right. Christians, be very, very careful. Because remember, Georges Lemaitre, Jesuit and Catholic priest, conjured the Big Bang. So let's slam the brakes on the Christian moniker. Let's take a look at a compare and contrast between Big Bang and God's Word. Big Bang, naturalistic cause. Singularity, quantum fluctuation. That's a joke. Nothing, and others. Also, a first law and quantum mechanics violation. God's word, God caused it. Big Bang, billions of years ago. God's word, thousands of years. See Genesis 5:10 in the Doctrine of Salvation. Big Bang, sun before the earth. God's word, earth before the sun. Big Bang, earth, molten rock first. God's word, earth, water first. Big Bang, fish before trees. God's word, trees before fish. And probably a bunch of people's favorites down here. We won't get into any discussion today. Is Big Bang, dinosaurs before birds, and God's word, birds before dinosaurs. So, like I said, be careful up here. Let's touch a little bit on something from nothing. This is David Darling on creation of something from nothing, New Scientist. He's a particle physicist. What is the big deal? The biggest deal of all is how you get something out of nothing. Don't let the cosmologists try to kid you on this one. They have not got a clue either, despite the fact that they are doing a pretty good job of convincing themselves and others that this is really not a problem. In the beginning, they will say, there was nothing, no time, space, matter, or energy. Then there was a quantum fluctuation from which, stop right here, stop right there. You see what I mean? First, there is nothing, then there is something. And the cosmologists try and bridge the two with a quantum flutter, a tremor of uncertainty that sparks it all off. Then they're away, and before you know it, they've pulled 100 billion galaxies out of their quantum hats. Friggin' joke. David Albert, quantum physicist, on the origin of everything. He responded to the knucklehead Lawrence Krauss, is his review of A Universe from Nothing. This is what he had to say. The fact that some arrangements of fields happen to correspond to the existence of particles and some don't is not a whit more mysterious than the fact that some of the possible arrangements of my fingers happen to correspond to the existence of a fist and some don't. And the fact that particles can pop in and out of existence over time as those fields rearrange themselves is not a whit more mysterious than the fact that the fist can pop in and out of existence over time as my fingers rearrange themselves. And none of these poppings, if you looked at them aright, amount to anything even remotely in the neighborhood of a creation from nothing. Alan Guth, professor of physics at MIT. In this context, a proposal that the universe was created from empty space is no more fundamental than a proposal that the universe was spawned by a piece of rubber. It might be true, but one would still want to ask where the piece of rubber came from. Questions, comments?
Yeah, well, I think that you have to know where something comes from, but it's more important. Nothing ever happens without intent and an action and someone putting something in action. So there's an intelligent design behind that, I would suggest. So even though that the whole thing is fallacious to begin with, but there has to be someone wanting to do something because of an action, right? And then you have a result. So it's I don't know why they go on and on about this, and now they think also that there are multi-universes and that some universes die and go over into another, and yeah, it's ridiculous.
Has everybody else seen that list before? You know, Big Bang first, God first, that list where it contrasts so many different things. It's amazing how many different subjects that seems to transcend.
Yeah, and the whole thing again is that science cannot examine the past; it can only examine the present. And when you're talking about one-off event in the past, you're talking about forensic evidence, and you can't derive that with math. You can't sit in a courtroom and use math to determine who was guilty. You know, you have to have some kind of witnesses, circumstances, and whatnot, and you can't make up the witnesses and circumstances. So they're hosts. They can't do this scientifically. It's impossible. It's a past event.
I'm speaking my love language.
Anthony or chocolate? Any more? Think not. Maybe move on.
Yeah, we're right back to how did they? First off, what did they observe? Like, how if everything is already here, how do you go back to when everything was not here to observe that it wasn't here? Like, it's just nonsense. You have no scientific method at all from the go. So, just guesswork. Numbers, stories, fantastical stories of cone-shaped explosions and of nothing. It's nonsense.
Or they're hiding the real DeLorean from us.
Right? Could be that.
I doubt it.
That would be much cooler.
Going back in time, having an actual time machine. That's what they're basically doing, isn't it? They're saying, yeah, back in time, we know what happened. Really? How did you see that then? No. Sleeping Warrior, anything to add?
Right.
Not on topic, no.
Fair enough. Moving on.
Let me know when it's up.
Yeah, you are up.
So, if you thought the Big Bang was a tear-jerking belly laugher, then hold on to your seat. Somebody hold the nebular hypothesis' beer. This, folks, is still taught in quackademia. So, from Immanuel Kant, 1755, some 4 billion years ago, the sun had ejected a tail or a filament of material that cooled and collected and thus formed the planets. Wow, great story that is. I don't think he thought this through. The originator of this nebular hypothesis met with Edmund Halley, of Halley's Comet fame, at Cambridge. Then Halley passed it off to Kant. The originator's name was Emanuel Swedenborg. He proffered the nebular hypothesis nonsense to Edmund Halley 21 years before Kant and Laplace had his version also. Guess where Swedenborg got the idea from? I'll just release it right here for you. Swedenborg, by talking with spirits from Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and the Moon. You think I'm joking? I'm not joking about this. This is documented till the cows come home, people. So this is where your science is coming from. This is a belly laughing joke.
Reverend John Mitchell would be disgusted, wouldn't he? I said Reverend John Mitchell would be disgusted.
The Reverend John Mitchell, yeah. So, the nebular hypothesis aficionados, another fiasco. Allow me to introduce to you the law of conservation of angular momentum. See, this states that angular momentum is conserved when there is zero net torque, red vacuum, applied to a system, where the system is the object or objects that are rotating. We can picture a skater spinning faster when their arms are pulled in close to the body. We've all observed this. Some of us have done this, not me. In the formation of the sun from a nebula in space, the same effect would have occurred as the gases allegedly contracted. Second law of thermodynamics violation there, folks, but we'll continue. Into the center to form the sun. This would have caused the sun to spin very rapidly. So we're just sticking with their story here. But the sun spins very slowly while the planets move very rapidly around the sun. In fact, the sun has over 99.86% of the mass of the solar system, but has less than 2% of the angular momentum. This pattern is directly opposite of the pattern Mystic Meg predicted for the nebular hypothesis. Now, what a contradiction. This is a contradiction piled on contradiction on top of many contradictions. And the outer planets are larger than the inner ones. Again, directly opposite of the Nostradamus prediction of the nebular hypothesis. From Nei, birth of Uranus and Neptune from astronomy. Psst. Astronomers who model the formation of the solar system have kept a dirty little secret. Uranus and Neptune don't exist. Or at least computer simulations have never explained how planets as big as the two gas giants could form so far from the sun. Bodies orbited so slowly in the outer parts of the solar system that the slow process of gravitational accretion would need more time than the age of the solar system to form bodies with 14.5 and 17.1 times the mass of the Earth. Joke. More, the nebular hypothesis Carnival 10 predicts that as the nebula spiraled inwards, all the resulting planets and comets would rotate and orbit in the same direction. That's prograde. But Venus and Uranus rotate in the opposite direction, called retrograde. Another contradiction. Lucy, you have some more splaining to do. By the way, retrograde orbits satellites and moons, Triton from Neptune, Ananke, Carme, Pasiphae, and Centipede, Jupiter, and Phoebe, Saturn. There is no plausible solar origin of the fairy tale planets. There is no plausible natural origin of the sun. None. Zero. I'll hold off right there. Questions, comments?
Who wants to go first?
I'll just say that I learned about Swedenborg years ago in studying religious issues. He had some crazy ideas, not to understate, but there are people today who follow him, some flat earthers, go figure. But that's, again, philosophy, religious, that people don't have a problem with, but as soon as you say Bible, they have a problem with it. It's the double standard that Betty just touched on earlier a couple of breaks ago. Other than that... Nope.
Wait a second. Are you calling into question the credulity of the spirits from those different planets and moons?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roger.
Spirits from the moon, Venus, Jupiter? Wow.
Well, no, I was more interested in the process of, or the length of time needed for the gravitational accretion of the gas giants. I mean, is that just basically an issue with their angular size being a bit too big based on their bullshit, right?
Yeah, and it looks like they're trying to push that time frame out a bit, doesn't it? See Anthony's spiel about 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago.
Makes you wonder why they're trying to push the time frame out. It's either that or they're literally just trolling people like Wiggles and Daniel, who'll believe anything that's in the newspapers.
Before the beginning, we had this star.
I think they're trying to troll everybody with this nonsense.
Do you know what? It's funny because it's like you just said, Paul, the minute someone says Bible, they just go crazy, right? There's more evidence for Noah's Ark than there is for gravity. Just think about that for a minute, because it's absolutely true. At least there are boats knocking around that people claim to be the Ark. Well, whether they are or not, at least they've got boats. You guys can't even demonstrate a force that you believe is causing things called gravity. It's nonsense.
Yeah, you can go examine the places where, and the pieces of petrified wood or whatever they're finding, and check the records and see, yeah, there was a thing there. There's some evidence for it. You can see the sulfur in Sodom and Gomorrah. That's still ignitable today. So yeah, absolutely.
But the thing is, though, even if they're not the Ark or Sodom and Gomorrah, let's just say that the evidence turns out to be wrong. At least you can go and look at the evidence to work out whether you think it's right or wrong. Right. There is nothing for gravity other than belief.
Oh, it's
a story.
Let's do a rare shout out for RSE channel. So he recently visited the town of Gomorrah, if you can call it that. It's just a wasteland, and did exactly that when I had a look at the sulfur. Anyway, shout out to RSE. Subscribe today. Chocolate, did you have something to add? I know you were trying to get a word in there.
No, I mean, I could go on with all sorts of archaeology that's been done that is real evidence that you can examine and put in a lab, but, that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about stories.
I'm just going to do another quick shout out to the 150 people watching this live. Big shout out to all of you who've tuned into Quantum Eraser's channel live. Subscribe if you've not done so already. Betty, have you got something to add?
Nope. Not at all. Everything's been said, so...
So somebody's just put it in the chat. It's $E. So yeah, I'm not even going to. Anti-disestablishmentarianism puts it RSE, $E. Yeah, correct. Move on, Quantum Eraser. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did I? You're up. Ready when? Yeah.
No,
You're
I'm
ready
good.
when you are.
Did Chocolate want to add anything?
Oh yes, Paula answered. I did ask Chocolate, but Paula answered. Chocolate, did you want to add something?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Everything that could be said has been said. It's just fanciful stories. I did like what Paula said too. Like, yeah, people say Bible and they lose their minds, but then they believe this. You don't lose your mind at this.
No, and same goes for Reverend John Michelle. Right, I'm going to put you back up, John. You're ready. I'm ready whenever you are.
10-minute warning. This is the last topic for today. It's going to be, we're going to talk a little bit about the sun. So, sun formation. Let's go to Eva Novotny, Introduction to Stellar Atmospheres and Interiors. Listen, I'm going to read this twice. I'm going to read this without any comment from myself, and just below, I'm going to add my comments to this. This is beautiful. Listen closely. The process by which an interstellar cloud is concentrated until it is held together gravitationally to become a protostar is not known. In quantitative work, it has simply been assumed that the number of atoms per cubic centimeter has somehow increased about 1,000-fold over that in a dense nebula. The two principal factors inhibiting the formation of a protostar are the gas that has a tendency to disperse before the density becomes high enough for self-gravitation to be effective, and that any initial angular momentum would cause excessively rapid rotation as the material contracts. Some mechanism must therefore be provided for gathering the material into a sufficiently small volume that self-gravitation may become effective, and that angular momentum must in some way be removed. Okay, got that? Here's my additions. Let's see if we can find some peccadillos in here. I'm sure they're not going to be that hard. I highlight them. So we're going to read it again. The process by which an interstellar cloud is concentrated until it is held together gravitationally to become a protostar is not known. In quantitative work, it has simply been assumed that the number of atoms per cubic centimeter has somehow increased about 1,000-fold over that in a dense nebula. The two principal factors inhibiting the formation of a protostar are that the gas has a tendency to disperse. Yeah, that's called the second law of thermodynamics. Before the density becomes high enough for self-gravitation, which gravity Einsteinian or Newtonian, John Michelian, would that be, love? And by the way, both are debunked to be effective, and that any initial angular momentum would cause excessively rapid rotation as the material contracts. Some mechanism that directly violates the second law of thermodynamics must therefore be provided for gathering the material into a sufficiently small volume that self-gravitation that doesn't exist may become effective. And this is a belly laugher right here. And the angular momentum must in some way be removed. This is an absolute train wreck. I couldn't believe she wrote this. When I first stumbled on this, I was shocked, right? I don't know. I'd rather go to a carnival tent and get my palm read. This is a joke, folks. This has so many contradictions in it. It's hilarious. And I just pointed a few out here. Listen to these from Fred Hoyle again. Where microbes boldly went in New Scientist. There is no reasonable astronomical scenario in which mineral grains in space clouds, gas clouds, can condense. None. From Jeffrey Burbridge, Director, Kitt Peak National Observatory. If stars did not exist, it would be easy to prove that this is what we expect. From Abraham Loeb, Harvard Center for Astrophysics. Physics. Sorry about that. The truth is that we don't understand star formation at a fundamental level. Yeah, the truth is, Abraham, willful ignorance. You don't understand it because it directly violates the laws of quantum mechanics and the second law of thermodynamics. That's why you don't understand it. So you've chosen to whistle past the graveyard and float a feigned argument from ignorance fallacy with an implied argument to the future fallacy wrapped around its incoherent ankles to keep your mind-numbing just-so-story fairy tales alive. That's what you've done. You ain't fooling anyone. Paul Davies, the greatest puzzle is where all the order in the universe came from originally. How did the cosmos get wound up if the second law of thermodynamics predicts asymmetric unwinding toward disorder? Yeah, big mystery, Paul. Real puzzle. Is hydrogen bonding, sipping tea, and jogging in the rain unsolvable riddles? You all of a sudden get real stupid. The really scary thing, most of you never even look at these Formica deep hammer meet C4 fire contradictions. Just take their word for it without the least bit of due diligence or scrutiny. Like the spinning ball fiasco, then mindlessly parrot this abject buffoonery. That's all it is. Alice in Wonderland has more veracity than all of the nonsense put together that I've talked about today. Let's finish up more with the sun. So the standard model of the sun states that the sun is more or less a nuclear reactor. Wow. Allegedly has an inner core temperature of 15 million Kelvin. Let's just beat this thing over the head. So here's a good picture of it with the surface of the sun. From their story, the photosphere, you have the chromosphere just above the photosphere, and then the corona, just to orient you. This is the temperature profile of the sun brought to you by, according to their fairy tale story. So let me orient you here. On the left axis over here, or the y-axis, I'm sorry, is a logarithmic scale of temperature. On the x-axis is the distance above the convection zone or the photosphere. Okay? So as you can see, the temperature back here inside the sun is 15 million Kelvin. So it starts going down, really going down. I don't know where it lost all that energy from, but that's another story. So finally we get to the photosphere, right? So no problems here right now. It keeps going down into the photosphere. That's where this is. It gets to about 5,800 degrees Kelvin. So then as it moves towards, this is the chromosphere. Sorry, this is a little blurry. As it moves towards the chromosphere, its temperature slowly rising. And it's slowly rising through the chromosphere. It's still slowly rising. And then, bam, it goes parabolic from about 10,000 Kelvin up through the chromosphere into the transition point with the corona, and finally bolts out at about 1 million. Listen, if I went out further, it would even be more ridiculous. Does anyone see a problem here? Let me elucidate it. So the inner core of the temperature, according to their story, the inner core of the temperature of the sun is 15 million Kelvin. The outer surface of the sun, the photosphere, like I said, is approximately 5,800 degrees Kelvin. On its way to and through the chromosphere, the temperature slowly rises, then goes parabolic from 10,000 Kelvin to 500,000 to 1 million Kelvin, and even further when nearing the corona. Then 1 million Kelvin to 10 million Kelvin. You guys see it yet? I suppose the fairy tale pseudoscience priests collectively missed the lectures on the second law of thermodynamics. Heat really does flow up parabolic hills. This story is tantamount to standing near a wood stove, then moving back 500 meters because it's too hot. Then you spontaneously combust. That's what this is. This is a freaking joke, people. And this is their story. I am not making this up. You've all heard it before. I just put a little cowbell with it. So that finishes up the presentation. Thanks for your ear. Have a great day. And thanks for subscribing and showing up to the first ever live show on my channel, folks. Appreciate that. Out.
Good presentation. Well done. I think that's an excellent opener as a live show. I was just about to thank 153 people in the live stream for tuning in, hopefully smashing the PayPal link, and of course subscribing to Quantum Eraser YouTube channel. So any of the Ballbusters got any closing remarks? The live stream link isn't going to be public for this first show, although if you are on the Discord server, Science versus Pseudoscience, this is your opportunity. We may have a little bit of public response, we shall see, but you'll have to already be registered as part of that server. So any of the Ballbusters, maybe if we start where we left off last time, Chocolate, anything to add? Closing remarks, perhaps?
Yeah. So all this was based around the violation of the first law of thermodynamics.
Are you Chocolate?
You never said Chocolate. You said any of the Ballbusters panel, didn't you?
It doesn't matter.
I actually did say Chocolate, but it's all good.
Oh, did he?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go on mute, Chocolate. You interrupt.
It's all right. It's all right. No. Go ahead, brother.
I thought you said anybody on the panel. Did he not say that?
I think we should specifically hear from Sleeping Warrior, you know.
Praise to Sleeping Warrior. Right, so all this whole discussion or this whole presentation is based on a violation of the first law of thermodynamics, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. This is nonsense. I can't believe that this is even a potentially real scenario. Where's the science for this? It's nonsense.
They just make it up, Anthony.
Well,
didn't you know that?
My favorite is the sun. The whole what John just went over, how it actually gets hotter as it goes away from the core. It's like, what? How does that work again?
I like the analogy.
That's my favorite part of the story of the sun.
I like the analogy too. So you're quite close to the bonfire, and you go, "Whoa, it's a bit hot here. I'll move back 10 feet." So you walk backwards 10 paces, and then suddenly burst into flames because it's got much hotter.
Yeah, I mean, this is comedy. It's hilarious.
Paula? Right.
Not to mention that it's sitting in a vacuum too, so yeah.
I was going to say, yeah. I'll brace myself for Anthony's voice.
Yeah, I would just say once again, you can't falsify a story. I mean, it's not science if you can't falsify it. It's not a scientific theory. And there's no way to falsify a story, especially one with so many contradictions. You can make it anything you like. It's pure fantasy.
Which is what they kind of do with gravity. It's the same kind of nonsensical explanation. The more we talk about it, the more real it is.
It's like climate change. They gave up calling it global warming and global cooling, and now it's climate change, and now it's climate chaos, because whatever they call it, they can make anything they want to blame for it.
Yeah. So if it's global warming, it's because the ice caps are melting, right? Increasing the volume of water over the whole planet. But when they realize it's cooling, then it becomes, well, it's cooling because we're putting too much oxygen or whatever into the atmosphere, and they'll constantly make it as though it's our fault and we all need to be taxed for it.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's to make us to blame so they can impose worldwide draconian measures to curtail our freedoms and take our stuff from us. And that's what it's all about. And it's very much like Orwell's 1984, the explanation toward the end to Mr. Was it Winston, what was his name? Anyway, the protagonist in the story, they're explaining to him how this works, that if they want the Earth to be flat, if they want there to be, no gravity or how many planets or whatever it is, they just declare it to be so, and it's so because they declared it. That's their blueprint for all this, and science is no exception.
Oh, it makes me shudder. Who's scraping the plate?
Oh, that's me. I'm having tea. Sorry.
I'm
multitasking. Don't ever let it be said that Sleeping Warrior can't multitask. He can eat his tea whilst having a conversation on the Big Bang.
Wait a second. You're eating tea with a fork and a knife?
Let's not get into this, right?
No, it's not that kind of tea, John.
I've got some comments from Betty.
Not that kind of tea.
I heard.
No room for
Strong tea there, huh?
We've got to have some more comments. Hopefully, Betty. It's a bloody outrage, right? They've just made the whole thing up. They've called it science. It's an outrage. I don't know. We're all in very jovial moods, but this makes me shudder, if I'm honest.
Well, before John presented this once on Cataxis' channel back in the day, I never heard about this whole thing. And when he spoke about it then, I thought, how's this possible? Why did nobody ever say anything about it? I mean, why doesn't the whole sort of community not respond to this? That it can't be, and everybody just going along with it and adding on even more fallacious stuff on it. It's beyond me.
It's because they only pick scientists that have a mortgage, a couple of kids. You never see anybody that's young, free, and single driving a Ferrari, do you? You need responsibilities to maintain throughout their life, otherwise you can't be a scientist.
Oh, you just said the key word. People listen to them because they're scientists, right? Are they actual scientists?
No, they're pseudoscience pretender clown muppets.
Thank you. I rest my case.
They've got step one only, right? So this came up on one of the debates the other day. Subscribe to Nathan Oakley 1980, and basically someone was pointing out that I can't even remember the bloody example now. It doesn't matter. It'll come back to me. What were we talking about?
Anthony's eating tea.
The clonking noises. It's thrown me right off my game.
Listen, you've got to understand that English people drink tea, but we also eat tea at, like, I don't know what you guys call it. Is it dinner? See, dinner time is at 12 midday, right, for most people, but we also have tea at tea time. Tea time and dinner are interchangeable in where I live. It's like, I don't know, it's one of these weird idiosyncratic things that English people have.
And do you have lunch in the morning then?
But don't be silly.
What's this about?
I'm sure Nathan will agree. We call it evening meal. We call that tea as well as dinner, and dinner at dinner time is also called dinner. It's dead confusing. It's a dialect, regional thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was me hoping.
So dinner time is tea time.
Yeah, having a brain fart about a very poignant point about the deception of heliocentrism, and what do I get as the lead to help me get back on track? I get the Americanisms
discussion about northern regional dialect.
Yeah, bloody hell.
You were talking about teachers, teaching, this being taught. I think that was a little bit the train of thought, maybe.
No, the scientists.
And the scientists, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're not feeling well, so you're excused.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone completely.
A little bit of brain fog.
Yeah, definitely.
Luckily, it's not a vacuum like in most other people's minds.
What a total conversation killer. My bad. This is all my fault.
No, you're good, man. You're a trooper for coming out here today, man. I thank you for doing that, because you shouldn't be out here. You should be in bed. So thank you.
Maybe that's a note to round out this particular live show. So I think on that note, I might do exactly that, which is to say, I'll say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the Ballbusters panel, which is Chocolate Sane, Sleeping Warrior, Paula, otherwise known as YouTuber Bible Literalist Betty Van Velsen, and of course Quantum Eraser for making this show possible. And of course a massive thank you to all of you in the Quantum Eraser live audience for tuning in, hopefully smashing the PayPal link in the info box, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing and all that good stuff. If you happen to be watching this on the Nathan Oakley 1980 stream, then stay tuned, as there will be a short after show to follow. Once again, a massive thank you to all of you in the live audience. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next Ballbusters.